You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
So Marvel Comics just made an announcement. This is just over the wires now. It seems that they're going to take their Hellfire Club Gala, the thing they do once a year where they have their artists draw all their characters in fashion outfits and make covers of it and stuff like that. Well, they're going to bring that to life at San Diego Comic-Con this year. They're going to hold a Hellfire Gala, and they're going to hold it on Saturday, July 22nd at the San Diego Comic-Con, and they are encouraging people to dress up. And they're going to have a couple different things that guests can go to. There's the Green Lagoon, which is said to be inspired by the watering hole at Krakoa. Strut down the green carpet to enter the event surrounded by lush greenery inspired by the location. Here, guests will enter the event, and once inside, grab a seat to survey the environment between dance sessions out on the floor. All right. Then there's the Hellfire Ballroom. Worlds collide in this grandiose Hellfire Ballroom, home to the event's main offerings. Guests will find themselves transported through a Krakoan gateway to enter a space where looks are served and justice is brought. The dazzling dance floor comes to life with heroes, villains, and everyone in between, with booths on the edge of the dance floor to catch your breath after you've assembled your own Hellfire Inner Club. And finally, Lair X. Head to the underground lair dedicated to the X-Men and take a look back over the last 60 years of mutant history. Lair X will have its own activities and a dance floor, along with a bar, seating area, and photo opportunities, perfect for immortalizing all magnificent cosplay. Yeah, so basically, this is going to be a big cosplay party. And I have seen some people online do some amazing looking cosplays based off of the Hellfire Gala. The one in particular that comes to mind is the cosplayer Gracie, the Cosplay Lass. She's done 2 different outfits for Mystique, and they're absolutely fabulous. So I'm kind of curious if she's going to go, but it's not a freebie event. Tickets will be from $65 to $155. There's a gold membership, $65, $7 processing. They all have $7 processing fee, by the way. There's a gold member expedited, which is $85. General member, which seems like those two should be flipped. General member is $125. General member expedited is $155. I have a feeling those are flipped. But with the tickets purchase includes entry to the D23 Presents the Hellfire Club Gala, featuring multiple rooms, DJs, photo opportunities, and more. 1 drink ticket that can be used for beer, house wine, well drink, soda, or bottled water. A commemorative gift, and exclusive for guests who purchase the expedited version, they will get early access to the venue and a dedicated queue. So yeah, Marvel is finding new ways to get people to spend money with the upcoming Hellfire Gala at San Diego Comic-Con this year. Stick around for the Dan Wickline Show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. It is May 23rd, Tuesday, and we got a lot going on the show today. We got some news. We've got a rewatch of Thor to cover, and we've got some key Thor collectible issues that we're going to talk about. But I want to jump into the news pretty quickly here. But let me first say hello to Triple B, who's driving right now. So both hands on the wheel, buddy. Cool and Ed are here. Good to see you both. So let's jump right into the news because, like I said, we do have a lot to cover. This one I find really interesting. This is there are rumors flying around about the Fantastic Four. I mean, it seems like every day we get a new bit of news. Hey, Josh, how you doing? And none of it's been confirmed yet. There is still no official casting for the Fantastic Four. But one of the things we've been hearing is that they want the actor who plays Ben Grimm to be like the character, to be Jewish. So this really kind of hits on all levels with this latest rumor of casting. And it's not so much that I think it's a done deal. I have no idea. But I think it's a real outside the box casting, and I really like it. So the person currently being talked about for The Thing is David Diggs. Now, you probably know him from Hamilton. He's Thomas Jefferson in Hamilton. He does that insanely fast rap and the song What Did I Miss? He also played Andre Layton in the Snowpiercer series. And then he's done a lot of voice work, which, again, a lot of The Thing is going to be mocap suit and voiceovers. And he's done Cyborg in the DC League of Super Pets. He's also voiced the characters on Star Trek Prodigy and Marvel's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. So he's got an established thing with Disney already. Now, like I said, Diggs is Jewish, as is Ben Grimm, and that's something Marvel has been specifically looking for in casting. He's also 41 years old, which kind of matches up to the age range that people have been talking about, that the rumors have been talking about, because we're supposed to be getting a Fantastic Four where Reed and Sue are already parents. You know, we're going to go into this being a superhero family right away. So Diggs is a really interesting casting. He's a very physical guy. He's large. So I think from the standpoint of looking like Ben Grimm, I think it works for me. And like I said, this is my opinion on it. I think it's a great idea. I really do. I like Diggs. I've liked him in just about everything I've seen him in. And also, he seems like a genuinely good guy when you watch videos of him in interviews and stuff. So my fingers are actually crossed on this one. I've not been excited by some of the other casting rumors. I'm not a big fan of Adam Driver. I don't particularly like the idea of Margot Robbie as Sue Storm, with her being so closely associated with Harley Quinn. But if that's who we get, that's who we get. But this one here would actually get me excited. So, all right, let's move on. Netflix dropped a trailer for their upcoming animated series, Skull Island. And the interesting thing is they also released a cast list. And these are the voice actors involved in Skull Island. We have Nicholas Cantu from Dragon Rescue Riders, Heroes of the Sky, Mae Whitman from Family Guy, Darren Barnett from Never Have I Ever, Benjamin Bratt. And what's interesting is in the release, they refer to him as from Poker Face. He was in like a little bit of Poker Face. I haven't seen all of it. I mean, he is a recurring character in Poker Face. But you think of Benjamin Bratt, I mean, there are so many other things you could come up with. Catwoman. He was in the bad Catwoman movie. He was in was it Miss Congeniality, the one with Sandra Bullock as a beauty pageant, cop in a beauty pageant. Um, he was a regular on Law and Order. I mean, there's a lot of things you could come up with. So Poker Face seems like an odd one. It just happens to be his most recent. And then Betty Gilpin from Miss Davis. And I'm not sure. We do not speak of that movie, Dan. Fair enough, Josh. I understand. Um, so yeah, Skull Island's coming. You could check it on YouTube for the trailer, and it will be hitting Netflix on June 22nd. A little interesting shakeup in the Marvel world. Insider Jeff Schneider reported over the weekend that there was a chance they were changing writers for the upcoming Avengers Kang Dynasty. Originally, Jeff Loveness was going to be the writer. He recently did Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and you kind of have to wonder, with the critical reaction to Quantumania not being very high, if Marvel, and there's been a lot of talk about Marvel kind of changing directions, part of it because of the reaction to some of the movies and stuff that have come out, and part of it because of Jonathan Majors. Now, this change is supposed to have happened a little while back before the writer's strike, so they may not have a new writer for it. And this is supposed to be in theaters May 2nd, 2025. So if all this is true, this could be working towards a big mess. So don't be surprised if it gets pushed a bit. Don't be surprised if it gets pushed a bit. So, all right. And other news, there was kind of an interesting casting choice the other day for the upcoming Daredevil Born Again series. Now, the project is already pretty interesting because it's going to be the longest MCU series to date. It's 18 episodes long. Now, I realize that, that's even longer than the Netflix series. Plus, it brings back Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, and John Bernthal. But the recent addition to the cast is actor Clark Johnson, and he's supposed to be playing a recurring role. And we do have an idea who that role is, but I'll get to that in a second. But Johnson is known as an actor and a director. And the thing is that with him coming on as director, as an actor, he's also supposed to come in and direct 2 episodes of the series, which I think, other than Taika Waititi showing up as Korg, this is the first time. This is the rare time that an actor is going to be directing the series he's in as well. Now, as for who he's playing, Deadline, who is doing the reporting on this, said his character is supposed to be named Cherry. So I did a little digging, and there is a character named Randolph Cherry. He's a city councilman and he was created by Frank Miller during a particular Daredevil run. The Daredevil run happened to be the one where Wilson Fisk is running for mayor of New York. Now, that's been the rumored storyline for Daredevil Born Again, is that it's Kingpin running for mayor. So we can add in the fact that he's coming in as his character Cherry, and there is Randolph Cherry in that story. So there's a good chance that that might have just confirmed that we are getting the Mayor of New York storyline for Wilson Fisk. So for those of you who saw Guardians of the Galaxy, there is the rumor that the question of whether or not the High Evolutionary is dead at the end of the film, and James Gunn has confirmed that no, he's not dead. And you can kind of tell in the movie. There's a scene where the Guardians are leaving his ship before it crashes, and there's like flames behind him, and they're all walking out. And if you notice, Drax is carrying something over his shoulder. Well, that was supposed. I mean, that is the High Evolutionary, Chuck Woody. That's him. Um, Drax is carrying him out, and the character was supposed to, in the closing credits, we find out that he was taken back to nowhere and put into a cell and is imprisoned on nowhere, and it was going to show that in the ending where they kind of bounce around everybody, but they felt it kind of took away from the feelings at the ending, so it got cut. But Gunn says nope, he is definitely alive. um, let's see, and it's important that he's alive, and James Gunn explained, he says it's the whole culmination of Rocket's journey. His shift comes in that he doesn't kill him. He goes from being the least empathetic to the most empathetic guardian. It would seem silly and hollow that if he refused to kill him and then left him on an exploding ship. And yes, there is a deleted scene. It's really great actually, but it messed up the pacing of the ending. But you'll see it in the extras eventually. So there you go. High Evolutionary is still alive. All right, we're going to shift gears just a little bit here, as I wanted to talk about the sad news from yesterday. And this one kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Sunday night, we watched Thor to do the show today, and saw Ray Stevenson on the screen as Volstagg. And Ray Stevenson's one of those actors that I have been a fan of for a long time now. He's one of those actors that whenever he pops up in a movie or a TV show, I instantly know it's just gotten better. Clancy Brown's that way. There's a handful of actors that that the moment they step on the stage or they enter a scene, the show just got better. And Ray Stevenson was that. I first saw him in Rome, not this city. I wasn't like visiting Italy. I came across him watching Rome on, was it HBO or show? I think it was HBO. And this was such a great series. It introduced me to Ray Stevenson. It introduced me to Kevin McKidd, and it kind of reinforced another actor I always was a fan of, James Purefoy. And to have basically the events of Rome, the fall of Rome, as seen through the eyes of two Roman centurions, Lucius Vorenus and Titus Pullo, it was a fascinating story, and it had me absolutely hooked. And it ran for, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 2 seasons, and just absolutely loved it. And Vorenus and Titus were just these great characters that you wanted to follow and you wanted them to succeed. So coming out of there, anything that Kevin McKidd or Ray Stevenson showed up in, I wanted to see. And he had been working for about 10 years prior to that, doing a bunch of British television, stuff like that. But he ended up, after Rome, he popped up in Punisher Warzone. And that's probably the least known of the Punisher movies. I mean, we all know the Dolph Lundgren one. And, the hatred it gets, but because it's so little Punisher. And then, of course, we know the Tom Jane one. And we know John Bernthal's portrayal. But in the middle was this Ray Stevenson Warzone. And it was the most straight out of the comic Punisher story that I've ever seen in live action. Ray was absolutely great in it. It is one of just the big violent romp. It is like John Wick done years beforehand, you know. Um, just a really fun movie, but it just didn't get that much play, and I don't know why. Because if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's not this big drama or whatever. It's like I said, it's John Wick, but with the Punisher. From there, he would go on, and he actually voiced the Punisher in the Superhero Squad show, which I think is funny. He was in Cirque du Freak, The Vampire's Assistant, The Book of Eli, The Other Guys. He was fantastic in Kill the Irishman. And we're talking about in a cast that included Christopher Walken, Vincent D'Onofrio, Val Kilmer, Linda Cardellini. I mean, just phenomenal stuff. Vinnie Jones and Paul Sorvino, and I think Stevenson steals that movie. He had also been in I don't remember the name of the movie, but he was in a movie with Kenneth Branagh, which would lead to the next thing in his life, which was he got cast as Volstagg in Thor. Now, the Warriors 3 were completely underutilized in Thor. I think Kenneth Branagh did a great job with them. They did a pretty good job them in Dark World. And then Taika Waititi just used him as cannon fodder. And I don't like that. But I thought he did a great job when he was on screen. He brought the energy of Volstagg. He went on after that to play Porthos in The Three Musketeers. He was on 9 episodes of Dexter, and as most of you know, Dexter has a special place in my heart because it's a show I actually got to appear on. So anybody on Dexter to me is family in my warped mind. He was in G.I. Joe Retaliation as Firefly. He was in the Divergent series as Marcus, and just so many great things. Blackbeard and Black Sails. And then he even got into the Star Wars universe as the voice of Gar Saxon, a Mandalorian in Rebels and also Clone Wars. So he was in The Accident Man and Medici, Vikings. He was the bad guy in RRR. He was recently in Das Boot. I mean, just so many great stuff. And then just recently we see that he'd been brought in as into the Ahsoka series to play Baylan Skoll. And the moment I saw him in the Ahsoka trailer, I was like, my interest in the series quadrupled. He looked so badass with his orange lightsaber, standing toe to toe with Ahsoka, and just and watching the interviews and stuff of him at D23, and just what a fun time he was having. And then to wake up yesterday morning to hear he had died at 58 years old. 58. That's nothing. That's 58 years old. That means he could have 20 more years of acting, of creating, of time with his family. So much more time. And we don't know why he died. And I'm hoping it's something that was quick, that he didn't suffer, for one thing. But I'm also hoping it's something that it's not an overdose or anything like that, because that's not the vision we have of the guy. Every person who's been eulogizing him and all the people that work with him come out and they talk about just how he lived life to the fullest and how he was always up and always gregarious. And I mean, he was like Volstagg in a lot of ways. He was this larger than life guy. And now he's gone. And that's just a gut punch. You know, it's an absolute gut punch. All right. Let's take a break and we'll come back and we'll talk about Thor. Be right back.
Did you know that every Experience show, including some exclusive content, streams on Twitch? Check it out. Twitch.tv/the_EXP. Or just scan that QR code.
Imagine being at a convention and going to an interview panel that's just for you. No bustling crowds, no hours-long lines, just you, the moderator, and your favorite comic book creators. Well, this is pretty much that. Miss Jen sits down every week with 2 comic book creators for a live stream interview about their latest work, and you can ask them whatever you want. It's Talking Shop, Mondays at 5 Eastern on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales. To be continued. 3 little words that hold the secret to the next great story. 3 words that will thrill you, confound you, give life to new possibilities. Every variation of To Be Continued is a promise of adventure, a promise of excitement, a promise of unseen wonders and unexplored worlds. A promise that every issue you read makes you a part of a never-ending journey, and behind every page there will be an unopened door waiting for you. This story to be continued at your local comic book shop today. Visit comicshoplocator.com today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We're going to be talking about Thor, the original movie from 2011. We're still in phase 1 of Marvel, and to me, some of the phase 1 movies are still some of the best movies. But I mean, I realize that origin stories, trying to get things out of the way, there was a lot to this movie. And in my opinion, and this will be somewhat a controversial take, this is the best Thor movie. Now, I realize some of you were, wait, what about Ragnarok? Hear me out. This movie is the Thor that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and then Larry Lieber and Walt Simonson. This is the Thor they wrote. This is the character of Asgard and Odin and Mjolnir and those adventures. It's not really high fantasy because it pulls Earth in, and when Earth is part of it, is considered low fantasy. But it is this epic fantasy tale. And what we got with Ragnarok, I'm not saying Ragnarok's a bad movie. Ragnarok to me is a bad Thor movie. Because Thor should have been this continuing growth journey. You know, we meet him in this movie. He's young, he's arrogant. His own hubris is his worst enemy. That and his brother. And that's the tale. There's a complete story arc there. The Thor we meet to the Thor we end with. And he's still a little bit arrogant when he goes on to the Avengers and when he goes on, because he is a god. You know, there is that above it all type of attitude. But even in Dark World, it continued that arc. By the time we got to Endgame, not Endgame, Ragnarok, his character had kind of stalled. But there was still a little bit of growth in the character. But then we get to Love and Thunder, and it's like he's reverted all the way back to the arrogant young guy again, who's now lost his mother, his father, his half-brother, his entire people, all, you know, where he comes from, his own land. What's left of his people are on Earth. And he's more of an arrogant little kid again, which doesn't make sense from a character growth-wise. So to me, that's also a lot of what failed about Love and Thunder. Ragnarok lost all the fantasy elements and it became a sci-fi movie. And that's fine. I mean, it was kind of Gladiator in space. But even between Ragnarok and Love and Thunder, you had him deal with all of the emotions in Endgame and stuff and becoming depressed. And I don't know. I have a lot of problems with Love and Thunder. Josh says exactly this. Thor goes from arrogant fat bro to sensitive, caring ruler in each Thor movie. He had way better development in Avengers movies than on his own. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that they did it right the first time, and then they just kind of reset him for each movie. I don't think they did it in Dark World as much, but after that, he keeps going back to being arrogant frat bro. Yeah. So from that point of view, I think this is the arc that Stan and Jack used to create the character. Also, they were able to bring in so many of the elements that make the Thor comics work. I mean, if you think about it, not only did we get Thor and Jane and Mjolnir, but we got Odin and Frigga, we got Sif, we got Loki, Heimdall, Hogun, Fandral, and Volstagg. Those are 11 major characters from the Thor comics. I mean, other than Balder the Brave, I'm not, maybe Tyr. I mean, there's a couple minor ones, but there aren't really any other big. And we got the Destroyer armor. There's a lot of stuff there. And Kenneth Branagh, the director, and was it Ashley Miller, Zach Stentz, and Don Payne, who wrote this, did such a good job of bringing it all together into a cohesive story. And I mean, if I had to pick out the biggest flaw in the movie, it's one that Kevin Feige agrees with me on, which was dyeing Chris Hemsworth's hair and facial hair that blonde. He would have been fine with his natural color. And we see that going forward that they went, yeah, that was a bad idea. But Kevin Feige has even admitted that them dyeing the eyebrows and stuff was a bad idea. But to me, Kenneth Branagh created this tight, straightforward origin story. And rewatching it, it made me really wish they would have had him back for season 2 or the second movie. And I don't know why he didn't come back. And the second movie, we're going to have lots to talk about that. I mean, it started out with Patty Jenkins, and then Alan Taylor came in, who was doing Game of Thrones. There was a lot of disagreements between Taylor and the studio. And that just goes to, again, back to why I think this movie is the quintessential Thor movie. And again, I know people love Ragnarok. I enjoyed Ragnarok. But to me, it's not a Thor movie. Ragnarok is more of a Hulk movie, if anything, to me, or kind of a team-up movie, where this is a pure Thor movie because you get your Loki, you get Laufey. I mean, they bring in so many of the elements that make these characters work in the comics, and they do it in one. And then you get the payoff of the big party scene at the end, and you have Walt frickin' Simonson sitting at the table sharing stories with Lady Sif. And to me, it was great. And now, I'll admit, I'm a big Kenneth Branagh fan. I love his work on Hercule Poirot. I go back to The Gingerbread Man and Dead Again. The guy is, to me, a fantastic director and actor. But look at the cast he was able to pull together for this movie. A lot of these people he had worked with prior. Tom Hiddleston. He got Tom Hiddleston to audition because they had worked together on Wallander, a little Scandinavian cop show. The Ray Stevenson, they had worked together on a movie. And he, like every director, they try to bring in the people they know, just like James Gunn does, and people are giving James Gunn crap for that, but every director does it. And we ended up with probably one of the best villains in all of Marvel with Loki, to the point where he's now switched over and is getting his own TV series. So I really do think this is one of the strongest origin movies. I think Marvel did a good job with most of their origin movies in the beginning, in phase 1. And again, they're going out to people that you don't think of for these kind of movies. You go to Jon Favreau for Iron Man. Jon Favreau is known for Swingers. Louis Leterrier, who just did Fast X for The Incredible Hulk. At that point, he's known for The Transporter, or those kind of movies. Kenneth Branagh, who is probably best known, besides movies like Dead Again and Gingerbread Man, he's known at that point for Shakespeare. Okay, so he can handle the accents? I don't know. So the choices they made, and then Joe Johnson for Captain America, who was known for The Rocketeer. So, I mean, they weren't going to the huge name directors. They were going to the directors they felt could tell the story that they wanted to tell. And I wonder if they're still doing that. They're going to a lot of new directors, and maybe they're trying to take bigger risks now, because I can see in the works of these guys, on some of them, where they're going in the first phase. I don't really see it in the later phases with a couple of the directors. But that said, they've also made some great director choices later on too. But the music for this really works. The time on Earth versus the time in um, Asgard, to me, works. It's a good balance. I think, you also get uh, Clark Gregg showing up as Coulson and bringing his humor. I mean, there's also a lot of humor and heart in this story too. Stellan Skarsgård is wonderful as Eric Selvig, and then he gets to continue on in the series and in the Avengers. We meet Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye in this. Great lines in that. He's like, "You better hurry up, Coulson. I'm starting to root for this guy." The lines about CrossFit. Jenkins can't even pick it up, and he does CrossFit. There's a lot of really good in this movie, and it almost bothers me how far away they have gone with Thor. Again, Ragnarok was an entertaining movie, but it didn't feel like a Thor movie to me. Josh says, it's also the flick that probably sold a lot of female non-comic fans on the MCU, not just because it's a good movie, but ladies love some Hemsworth and Hiddleston. You're right. They did bring in 2 sex symbols, and neither one of them were household names before this movie. Sure, people had heard of Anthony Hopkins and Rene Russo, but the rest of them, not so much. Ed says, I don't understand why they have slowly turned Thor into an almost slapstick type character. I love Thor in the first movie and in the first Avengers movie. And that's the point I'm getting at. I think they went with Taika Waititi, and he did a good amount of the slapstick, but not as much in Ragnarok. And then because it got such a good reaction and did so well, they kind of went, well, run with it. And when he got completely unleashed, it didn't work anymore. I mean, how do you decide I'm going to do a lighthearted comedy type movie where Russell Crowe is playing Zeus and is going to hold his skirt up to go downstairs? At the same time, we're going to deal with a major cancer story, that one of our major characters is dying of cancer. Big miss on my account, or my opinion. But all right. So again, to me, this is the quintessential Thor movie. This, if somebody goes, hey, let's watch a Thor movie, I'm going to this one. Like I said, I know a lot of people love Ragnarok, and it's a fun movie with all the humor and the big music and the big scenes, and it's a fun movie. But to me, this is Thor. This is the comic book Thor. Josh says, I got the impression that Hemsworth himself likes doing comedy, so when a good portion of the movie is improv, it might have just swung that way. Yeah, I've heard that as well. He does like doing comedy, and if these are the type of movies that keep him around. But I don't think Taika Waititi is going to be back to do another Thor movie. And Hemsworth has got some health stuff he's worried about. So I don't even know if we're going to get much more Thor. Probably some. He'll be in the Avengers movie and stuff. But will we get a Thor 5? And if so, what direction? Do they go back to this? Can they go back to this? Or do they have to keep with the more comedic beats? I don't know. All right. Ed says, a little off topic, but have you heard anything about the Hulk Hogan bio picture that Hemsworth is in? I heard about it in 2019 and haven't heard much more. I haven't heard an update on that in quite some time. I don't know. I know that when Hemsworth found out that he was genetically deposed to, I don't remember what the disease is, but it could cut his life shorter, that he wanted to take some break from acting for a while. So what that put all his projects, I'm not sure of. But let me look into it, Ed, and see if I can get you an answer tomorrow. Okay? All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we got some key Thor issues to cover. Be right back.
Comic Collectibles is here for you every Wednesday with AR Comics for two very important reasons. To sell you rare, one-of-a-kind comics that you'll love, and to confuse AR with old man talk. You see, Rex and John are, how should I put this, ancient as the roots of the mountains. So every week, Rex and John fill in AR in yet another area of pop culture that he missed because he's too young, just didn't have the time, or just really doesn't care about. It's a real public service they provide. Come buy some super rare and unique comics, while old men explain long-dead sci-fi shows to a younger man making that confused puppy face. Every Wednesday from 6 to 8 Eastern with Rex, John, and AR Comics. Comic Collectibles on The Experience. Comic culture and sales.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Go follow The Experience on TikTok at @the_EXP1 or scan the QR code on the screen. Our TikTok is like everywhere else we are, except you only have to deal with us for a minute. Seems like a win-win to me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dan Wickline Show here on The Experience. We got a great lineup tonight. Following this is In Stores This Week with myself and Jay. Kyle will be taking the night off. So we're probably going to be blasting through the books pretty quickly with just the two of us. After that will be Minute to Skim It, and then the Mint Hunter Show. Also, I got some homework for you guys for tomorrow's show. Tomorrow we are going to talk about Superman. But what I want to talk about is something that came up during Pop Go the Writers the other night, which is a notice that I've had is anytime people talk about their favorite Superman stories or the best Superman stories, they're all stories that take place outside of continuity. So I want to talk about that and what are some of the best Superman stories. And what I've done is on my different social media, I have put a post basically asking people to tell me their favorite, what are the best Superman stories. And I'm kind of curious to see how many are going to be in continuity and how many are out of continuity. And the theory is that people like Superman, not when he is the big blue Boy Scout, which is what we all expect him to be in the comics, but their favorite stories are when he's different than that, when he's subverting expectations. So that's my theory. So tune in tomorrow, and you'll have to let me know if you have anything to add to that, or hit me up on social media on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook, and let me know the books that your favorite Superman stories. All right, let's blast through these Thor books real quick. All right, Thor key issues. What I did was I went through and I looked for the first appearances of all the people that show up in the Thor movie. Thought I'd tie it together. So, of course, first appearance and origin of Thor, Journey of the Mystery number 83 from 1962. This one goes for $81,000 on the high end. $20,000 on the median, still over $4,000 for a low-end copy. Then Journey number 84, the next week, or the next month, is the first appearance of Jane Foster. This one goes for over $8,000 on the high end, $2,700 on the median, $775 on the low end. In number 85 of Journey of the Mystery, we got the first appearance of both Loki and Heimdall. And this is a $14,000 book, $4,700 on the median and $950 on the low end. And you got to love Loki up there looking like Richard E. Grant. All right. Now, Journey of Mystery number 86, this is the first full appearance of Odin. He did you see like the back of his head in the previous issue. So this is, we consider a full appearance, not just a cameo. And this is $1,400 on the high end, $250 in the median, and $80 on the low end. So you can actually get Odin a little cheaper than you can get Loki. So after that, we have Journey to Mystery number 112. Now this is interesting because it's 3 years later. It's 1965, but we get our origin of Loki finally. But we get our first appearance of King Laufey, who of course is in the movie as well, and the origin that we see in the movie, that Loki is actually the son of King Laufey. This is a $1,500 comic on the high end, $500 on the median, $150 on the low end. Then we have Journey to Mystery number 118. This is the first appearance of the Destroyer armor. By the way, the Destroyer armor looked amazing in the Thor movie. I thought that looked awesome, especially when it kind of reverts itself around and fires on Sif. This is a $600 high end, $180 median, $60 low end. By the way, in these two issues, he also ends up giving the Destroyer to Galactus to be his herald, which I think is amazing. Journey to the Mystery number 119 from 65. This is where we meet the Warriors 3, Hogan, Fandral, and Volstagg. High end of this is only $250. Median's $50, low end is $15. So you can probably find a copy of this out there. Now, Thor number 126 is interesting from 1966 because it's basically Journey to the Mystery number 126. They just swapped the title here. This became Thor, but it was Journey to the Mystery up into this. So they just did a title swap, kept the numbering. This goes for $925 on the high end, $290 on the median, and $90 on the low end. And of course, it's Thor versus Hercules. Thor 135. Now, see, I didn't realize this, but here it is, 1966. The character's been around for 4 years now, and this is the first time he refers to his hammer as Mjolnir. So I think that's kind of interesting. High end on this is $100, median's $25, low end is $8. And then this is another interesting one. Thor number 136 from 1967. This is the first appearance of the Sif that we know. The dark hair, the red and white outfit. But there was another lady Sif that appeared back in Journey to the Mystery number 102. But she was a one-shot. She looked completely different and not seen again. And then when we see Sif, it's like it's a brand new character. So they consider this lady Sif's first appearance, and the other one just happened to have the same name. High end on this is $300, median's $100, low end is $30. Rob Zombie has a song called Super Beast. Maybe he was influenced by that Thor villain. Absolutely could be. I know Rob Zombie was a big comic fan, or is a big comic fan. So there's a lot of great Thor comics out there, and it's interesting. But so many of these were in the first couple years. I mean, we're looking at from 1962 to 1967 in that run there, and all of the characters that we see in the movie that are from the comics are introduced in that small period of time, which just goes to show the creativity that these guys were knocking it out. That, Jack Kirby was just, hey, here's another character. And it's hard to tell because we know their working relationship was weird, but how much of that was Stan going, hey, bring in these other characters, or was Jack throwing them on the page and Stan going, what do we call this guy? Okay, that's going to be the Warriors 3. Okay. So I would love to have been like a fly on the wall in some of those meetings because, depending on which camp you're in, people seem to think that that person did the most. That Jack Kirby did all the creation and Stan just threw words on there. That's the Jack Kirby fans. Stan Lee fans are like, well, no, he's the driving force. He was the narrative, and he was the one that, and I think the truth is somewhere in between, because you look at these characters that are now, from the 60s, we're now 60 some odd years later, and they're showing up in movies and they're showing up on TV shows and they're still around in the comics. And then you look at, even the stories are being pulled, the whole Loki origin, stuff like that. The Jane Foster becoming Thor was a what if issue before it was ever in canon. But it was the combination of the two, because you look at the stuff Jack Kirby did outside of working with Stan, and none of it, people love Darkseid, but you look at the New Gods and they're, oh yeah, the New Gods, but they don't have that same, you read the actual books and they're not that good. They're not the run that Lee and Kirby had on Fantastic Four or the stuff they did on Thor, stuff like that. And it's just like with the stuff, the Eternals when Jack came back. There's not a lot of good Eternal stories. They're interesting characters. He's great at creating characters, but I think it's the merging of the two. And that's what they did for those years on Thor and created all these amazing characters. And yeah, they're sitting there with Josh points out, is a Norse mythology book, but still they breathed a lot of interesting life into these characters. Let's see, that means it took Stan a year to buy Kid's Golden Book on Norse mythology. It says, I can't remember the streaming service it is, but there's a documentary with Kevin Smith interviewing Stan Lee, and he talks a lot about his relationship with Kirby and Ditko. Worth a watch. I have seen that. I think I actually own it on DVD. Yeah, I think the problem is there's a lot of falling out at the end between and some of the stuff the company did. So a lot of bad blood. But I actually got to meet Stan once, and I got to tell him a story to his face of when I met Jack Kirby as a kid. And sitting next to Stan Lee, telling him this story and seeing his reaction, because it's a great Jack Kirby story. I've told it to you guys, but getting to tell it to Stan Lee and seeing his reaction, I saw the love on his face for Jack, and how much stories like that meant to him about his friend. So, all right, guys. So yeah, if it comes down to the debate between Kirby and Lee, I'm right in the middle. I think that the magic that they had was because they worked together. So, all right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here, but don't go anywhere. Jay and I will be back, and we've got some really great comics to talk about, including the new Vampirella Superpowers book, a new issue of James Bond, Exorcists Never Die, a new Exo Man of War. We got some good stuff this week, so stick around, and we'll be right back.
Join the party. Head over to our Linktree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.